Of all the engines that could have wound up on my stand for a teardown, I bet you didn't think you'd see one out of a 240SX. And the only reason this engine is here is because I bought a wrecked 240SX from the salvage auction, and it was wrecked a little bit. Okay, it was hit pretty hard. So I expected that for it to have that kind of damage, surely the engine would run in some capacity. Nope, that doesn't run. So how did the car get wrecked? We'll never know. Maybe it ran backwards. Nope, I just loosened the crank bolt. This really is the last of the 240SX that I parted out that I have here at the shop. I know I always ask you guys to email me when you're looking for parts or asking about parts that I have in stock. This is it. So unless it's good and it comes off of this engine, unfortunately, I don't have it. The good old KA. When I say KA, I'm talking about the KA24 that came out in the late 80s as a single overhead cam version that you could find in the 240SX and the Nissan Hardbody, the Nissan Stanza. And then in 1991, they came out with a dual overhead cam version called the KA24DE. That was the first vehicle that got the dual cam engine. A few years later, the OG Nissan Altima got the DE as well. It was front wheel drive. And then in 1998, the Frontier came out with the dual overhead cam version as well. This iteration of engine out of a 95 240 produces 155 horsepower and 160 pound-feet of torque, which is not enough. It's just, in every other vehicle, this would be more than enough power for its era, but it's not enough. It's slow, it doesn't make any power, and I'm only judging that on the fact that there are no stock engine 240SXs out there anywhere. Every single 240, someone has swapped something else in, whether it's an SR20 DET out of a JDM 200SX, or maybe it's an RB out of a Skyline, or maybe it's an LS1 or a small block Ford or a VH45 out of Q45. Everyone has swapped all of the 240s. So to find a stock engine 240 at the auction as a total loss with a bad engine, I took that chance. We already know this engine is locked up tighter than Alcatraz, so the next step is going to be to pull the spark plugs. It's not looking good, guys. At this point, no normal people own 240SXs, and I do not mean that as an insult. I mean that as they are enthusiast cars. So you would expect to find some more expensive spark plugs, which we did find, but every single one of them is full of rust and corrosion, and it looks like green. That looks kind of green. That's the flavor of coolant. Yikes, this is going to be a rough teardown. The next thing that I'm going to do is remove the never seen on the channel before ignition distributor. I'm making a joke about coil unplug. Can you let go, please? Blue! That was a tight seal. I don't see any issues there. Before we go any further, I want you to take a peek at the condition of the coolant pipes, the cooling system. This car came out of Atlanta, Georgia, but somehow they had access to salt water because that is super corroded and rusty. It's actually probably just tap water, to be honest with you. But that is not what you want to see, and I'm sure it's somewhat related to what we're going to find here. The next thing I'm going to do is start on the intake manifold, and I'm going to attempt to pull this in one piece. There's a lot of pieces here, but we're going to get some penetrator on the EGR valve because I'd like to save the pipe and not break any bolts. Let's spray some penetrator on this. We'll let it sit. I'm going to spray it over here as well. Let's start with the intake manifold support bracket. Now we have some pipes to remove the intake that will stay behind, or just allow us space to get access to the bolt. I'm just trying to make it a little easier for us. So it actually works out that I had some spicy food tonight because I've got to put a little heat in this thing so we can get that off without stripping the threads. I think it might be wrecking some threads. I'm not sure yet. But it's off. I'm actually going to focus on the exhaust manifold now because once this is out of the way, it'll be easier to get the intake off with that EGR pipe out. That didn't break badly. 2. That one came out. Dipstick tube. Saved that for last. That's not even doing anything anymore. Will it fight me? I like these cars, and I think they're going to like me, right? It's going to like me. We're just going to, that's a later problem. We're just going to get this off now. And now we're going to unbolt the manifold. In an effort to get the exhaust apart, or the exhaust manifold off the cylinder head without breaking more studs, because I'd like to avoid doing that, I'm going to throw some more heat at it. Thank God I've got enough indigestion tonight. Now I'm going to spray some penetrator on it. And here goes nothing or something. Hey, no new broken stuff. Exhaust manifold with EGR pipe removed. A couple more bolts. That pipe can dangle. Try to get some things out of the way. The bolts that hold the manifold to the cylinder head, and there's still going to be some hoses and stuff that we have to contend with. We'll be just fine. Let's see if we can zap a couple bolts out of there. Looks like I need to remove some emissions stuff. And next we'll tackle the easy ones to get to from this end. So we're just going to see if we can crack as many of these loose as we can. There are still several that are going to be very fun. And they are buried, but they're not too buried. So the bolts down there are the ones that are going to be lots of fun to get to. We'll get there. This is what we're going to do. What's the worst that could happen? Don't answer that. See? Got it loose. We're actually just going to get this one all the way out, just so I don't have to come back here. I think I might have created a situation. I'd like my socket and universal joint back. This one might be a little trickier. Let's go see if I can find a shallow. Going in with a wrench. Do this the hardest way possible, just to show you guys what not to do. You know what? I think if I unbolt this, I'll get a little more throw. Looks like these excellent condition vacuum lines are turning to dust. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Let's get the rest of these all the way loose. That bolt's gone forever. Oh yeah, we're getting loose. Now there's no way this is just gonna come right off. I'm sure there's gonna be a bunch of stuff I gotta take off. Very dusty. We're just gonna pull on it. See what's holding us up. There's a rubber line, rubber hose. This one right here. You can get that off right here. What did you guys think I was going to cut that hose? This is a 240, bro. All right, there's still more hoses. One right there. I guess what I mean is there's still a chance. Oh, I got a tool for this. No, would you think it was a Sawzall? Where would you get that idea? Now will you come off? All right, what's holding us up? Oh, hey, that broke. And we're off. Let's get a peek at the intake rust. That's rust. That's more rust. And corrosion. Oh, and it's getting worse. So I think we know that water was involved in this situation, and this car was not a flood car. Not a flood car. Now we can peel the valve cover off. They're normally not black either. I think someone's had this powder coated. just get Blue to crack this thing, crack the seal. How do we look inside? Ugh. Well, it's not good. It's dark and dingy, lots of oil deposits, lots of rust on the camshaft lobes, lots of rust on the chain. There's clearly lots of moisture in the crankcase. The question is, how did it get there? Again, this was not a flood car. This is a car that was wrecked. And I guess all of this rust and stuff happened all at once and locked the back tires up. That's clearly what happened. There was no ill intent with wrecking this car at all. But I don't see anything broken, just lots of corrosion and poor maintenance. Next, we're going to remove the upper timing cover. That's the lower. We don't need to do that yet. See if we can crack this thing loose. It does have dowels and places to pry. But I also missed a bolt over here. There's a little bitty 10 over here. See if we can just get a little help here. And it's off. These have a pretty cool timing system. It's kind of, I'm going to stretch when I say this, kind of like the S2000 a little bit, the F20, just a little, in that it has a primary chain and a secondary chain, and then it has, this is an idler essentially, but it changes the ratio, because you can see here's your primary chain. And you can definitely tell dual row timing chain, pretty thick. These do suffer from chain related failures, but it's usually the plastic pads for the rails and tensioner that fail and not the chain itself. These engines were built to last much longer than the modern stuff, but people still broke them. Now it is time to remove the fan clutch. This is fun. Let me get a better tool for this. Sorry, Blue. And I get the fan clutch off. Water pump pulley. And now for the water pump. This has clearly been replaced already. It's an aftermarket pump. Let's give it a little tap. Ew. So, not that we expected it to look any different, but this water pump, its days are over. It pumped straight water. This looks like tap water. If you're going to run water in your engines, it's totally fine. Just make sure it's distilled. Don't run tap water, because this can happen. Now, that doesn't mean the water pump is bad, but the problem is you can't really clean all this stuff out, and who knows what the seals are like. So this is a bad water pump. Next, the crank pulley. Did that help me? I think I need to get that the big one off. Probably should have just taken this one out and left the other in. I can put it back together. Blue. I think we're getting places. Nope. Thought I was close enough. That wasn't too bad. I suppose we can start unbolting the lower timing cover. There's no chance that this seal was leaking ever. We're going to play a game called 10 or 12. 10. Did you guys guess right? Those are all 12s. We have one pretty pesky, it looks like the pan is bent over. This is wrecking my floor. I need to persuade this a little bit. There, that ought to do it. And if it didn't, it should have. And all that for that bolt. The rest of the lower timing cover bolts. Now it looks like you could remove the timing cover at this point, but you can't because the oil pickup tube bolts to the oil pump, which is part of the timing cover. So we're going to leave it be for the time being. We're going to start undoing the timing system, the secondary chain, so we can get the cylinder head off. And then once we flip the engine over, pull the pan, then we can get the lower timing cover off. First, start with this. You know what? I have a tool for this. It's not my Sawzall. Maybe that doesn't come off so easy. Yeah, we got it. So now, got that big bolt out. We're going to get the tensioner and the rail. It's not too chewed up. And I know what you're saying. You could hurt the camshafts. Did you see them? Did you look at them at all? They're not good. All right, now we can get this all apart. Now, it's that time in the video where we cram the cam caps off. No, it's gone. The bolt went all the way down the spark plug tube, and we're gonna have to wait till we get the head off to get it back. And these are numbered and lettered, but I'm still gonna keep them in order. Surprisingly, the journals in the cylinder head look pretty good. The oil doesn't. But the cylinder head doesn't really have a ton of damage from lack of lubrication or debris in the oil. Just really dingy. The camshafts would be in great shape if it wasn't for the moisture and rust, because the journals aren't really too bad. That's probably the worst one there, and I think it would polish out, but it doesn't matter because the amount of rust on the cams pretty much means these are bound for the bin. Cam caps have a little bit more wear than the journals because they have to fight the spring tension. That's probably the worst one right there. It's not terrible, it's not great. And then on the exhaust side, a little bit better condition. Caps look okay. And the camshaft looks pretty good outside of where the rust is. This cam doesn't really seem to have too much rust, but there is some, and some is bad. Now it's time to remove the head bolts, but before I do that, I'm going to take a pick and kind of make sure there's no excess sludge in the heads of the head bolts, because these are hex head bolts, the worst fastener on the planet. One step better than flatheads. And there's definitely some sludge and stuff in here. More oily than anything else. Might get a little bit of brake clean and spray them out. I think we're going to be okay. Crack these things loose. Oh. Look at that rust. Okay, that's all the head bolts. Should be nothing else holding the head on. What does it look like in here? Is it fine or is it not fine? Can I get it off? That's not a personal question. That's really not what I wanted to see. Wow. Well, there's our bolt for the cam cap. This is exceptionally terrible. And I can tell you that the head gasket is bad right there. And in this area, it's all bad. This might be the most rusted up engine that we've ever had on the channel. What is this? It's magma. Cold magma. No, rust water. Yuck. Look at the gray color here. These pistons might be one piece with the block. I don't know that this is actually going to come all the way apart. Wow. That is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Let's just look at some things. Is that block surface? Oh, there's the head gasket. Let's see if we can get this off here. This is gross. Wait, what the? It's happy finally. Yeah, head gasket heavily destroyed, heavily damaged here. These are not MLS gaskets at all. Between the cylinders, that is kaput. And then the block, a lot of the coolant passages, a lot of this all gunked up. I mean, this is really hard to get coolant through here when coolant can't get through here. We're doing some repairs right now. Real shame. They don't do this when you take care of them. They do this when you don't take care of them. And the cylinder head is, I mean, yeah, maybe you can salvage this, but why? I don't know what the value of a dual cam head is, but I bet this one got really hot. And there's a bunch of ick in this one. I think this is going to end up in the scrap bin. I mean, yeah, you could probably maybe save it, but I mean, what do you think the condition of the valve seats are? And the valves, getting this to seal again? Huh, good luck. No, it's an absolute waste of however long this takes, but you know, science and stuff. That didn't tell me a single thing. Now we're going to rotate this thing upside down and see what kind of yum yum sauce comes out of this. It's pretty dry. Now I'm going to unbolt the rest of the oil pan. I think part of the reason these engines like to leak from the pan gasket is the fact that there's not very many bolts holding it on. See what we can do to get this off. What does the inside of the pan look like? Oh, no. Yep, it's one of those. Starting to miss just the spun rod bearing engines. So this is going to be a fight to the very end. It may not get all the way to the end. I can't really tell what's inside there, but more of the substance I shouldn't have just touched. The inside of the pan. Look at this milkshake. Bad. I'm going to attempt to remove the lower timing cover with the pickup on it. Oh yeah, it'll just come right off. Look at that. I think this piece is okay, and I'm using air quotes. So there's a whole bunch of bad stuff, more milkshake in the pistons and bores. So I'm going to rotate this over without a pan so I can plop it all into the pan here. Ooh, it's chunky. Oh, it's plopping. This video is not sponsored by Evaporust. This video is sponsored by you guys. You guys are awesome. Several videos ago, probably 4 or 5 months at this point, I tore down a completely rusted up Ford 351 small block that I could not get all of the rods and pistons out of. And I said in the video, hey, if you send me some Evaporust, maybe I'll use it on the channel. I'm not going to use the stuff you send me to use on the channel on my personal stuff off camera. Instead, I'm going to use it to help with the teardown. And today we're going to use some of that Evaporust to fill the cylinders. I'm going to let it sit overnight or over a month. And we're going to come back and see if it makes it any easier to get the rods and pistons out. We're just going to poke a little hole and fill her up. The whole point of this is to just take it apart to see how bad it is. And if I can't get it apart, we can't really see how bad it is, which is why we're going to fill up these things with some Evaporust. I got to spread this evenly across. Ooh, that one is smoking. I'm going to use the whole container on this thing. And we'll come back later. All right, guys, it's been about 46 hours since I poured some Evaporust in here and let it sit. Now, I didn't have enough to fill it to the top, at least not in that bottle that I found. And this level has gone down just a little, and you can definitely tell it's kind of done its thing. That's a great color. And I've heard, you guys told me that you can reuse this stuff, so I'm going to try to get this out and get it back in the bottle, which I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. But that's the next step. So this is what I've come up with. I've got safety tote here, keeping me safe from getting all of this Evaporust on the floor, so I can't slip and fall. See, it's a dual purpose. We're going to catch it all in that so I can pour it back in the bottle. And it's all going to go in there. I'm not going to miss anything. Perfect. No way. It did stuff. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. Would you look at it? I mean, look, it's metal. You can tell where the line was for the Evaporust. I mean, the cross hatching is, no, it didn't bring that back. You can kind of see the cross hatching actually. Amazing. Now this one, some of this wasn't quite as nice, but I mean, that is so, I am so impressed. I mean, I know this stuff works, but I didn't think it was going to get it to where I can probably get this engine to turn. Should we try that? That is exactly what we should try. If this works, which it might, or I might break the bolt off in the snout. I'm sure this will just loosen this. Yes. Okay. Let's do some more science. Maybe that'll free it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to use my science hammer and my other hammer so that together, twice the hammer power. I guess you could call it hammer time. Yuck. I just splattered myself. That was an instant regret moment. I feel like I could just smack them with a hammer, but they'd probably shatter. All right, I am very confident that that did nothing, but we're still going to try it. I can't believe that didn't work. So the next thing I'm going to do is flip it over, and we're going to attempt to start unbolting stuff, and maybe we can get the crank out and knock the pistons out one at a time. The first thing I'm going to do is unbolt the main cap girdle. Glue. We're moving. Okay, main cap is off. This is what it looks like without the main cap girdle. It doesn't look like moisture set between the bearing and the crank, although that still has the bearing on it. There's the thrust bearing. There's still a lot of moisture in here. What we're going to do next is we're going to unbolt the rod caps. Hopefully we can get all of them out so that we can lift the crank out so we can drive the rods and pistons out one at a time. And I bet they'll be really stiff. Those rods will be stiff. That's not what I'm... Nope. We're going to start with the front of the engine. That way we can stay clean, not get sick. I need an offset wrench, which I don't know if I have. I have some stuff here, but I don't know if that's one of them. Let's see if we can use an open end like a very risky person. What's the worst that could happen? Don't answer that. I heard a pop. Oh, nope. That is not going to happen. I do believe I can get cylinders 2 and 3 out a little easier. Obviously, those two will come right out, but these two have a lot less in the way than cylinder 1. And that offset wrench would come in a lot handy right now, but let's try some things. All right, I think this will work. It'll either work or it won't. Those are our two choices here. I don't know if we're... Yep, we're doing bad stuff, I think. Let's try it once more for good measure. This time without... Oh, I think we got it. We've got this one, guys. One click at a time. Oh, look at that. Very good. I'm going to try the same nut on the number 3 cylinder next. Get this one off because we know we can get this out. Oh, this one has more stuff in the way. Okay. I don't know if that's going to work or not. Yeah. That is excellent. On these, I'm glad these aren't too tight. Second challenge is going to be to get the rod caps off. Have a gap yet? I think I'm just driving the stud. Just give it a little. That's just the stud coming loose. All right, we have to change our tactic. I just want to pause the video for a split second, just a moment, to explain that normal people, rational people, would just walk away at this point, take this short block off the stand and throw it in the scrap bin because that's likely where all of these parts will end up. There's no real value here, especially compared to the amount of effort it's going to take to get this apart. This is scrap. The crankshaft's worth about $200 shipped if it's good, and that's a big if. And then when you compare that to the amount of work it's going to take to get this whole thing apart, and the likelihood that someone's actually going to buy it when it's so scaly, it's a huge waste of time. This is a giant waste of time, which is exactly why on this channel I am not a normal person, or in real life for that matter, and we're going to proceed as if nothing is wrong, and we're just going to take this thing apart. Now, I am not showing you guys how to take apart an engine from this point forward in a way that I would take apart an engine that I cared about. The only guarantee I can make at this point is that if you work on an engine the way I'm going to after this part of the video, I can guarantee you it will not run again. Let's get back to it. This'll work. That's not working, is it? No, it's just pushing the studs through. It's fine. Just got to think about this a little bit. It's not working, is it? You know what I think we should do? We should take the rest of the rod cap bolts out in any way we can and then try to turn it over, and maybe it'll just fix itself. This is going to work. And if it doesn't, it should have. Open end wrench. What could go wrong? I got that initial pop, but I did that on the other one too, and it still didn't help me. No, that's not gonna work. Let me think. Violence is not the answer yet. All right, we're gonna try this with a wobble socket. And if it doesn't work, well, it should work. Yeah. Okay, so now we can get that off. Let's see if we can zip those out real quick, and we'll get the front two, and we'll get this one just while we're here. Oh no, what have I done? Will the wobble socket work up here? Most certainly not. Let's get the easy one because you always want to finish last. Wait, that makes no sense. This is not working too well. That was not what I wanted to happen, and that doesn't turn in that fashion. So I suppose what we could do is just try to turn the engine over the way it is. Yeah, we'll try that. Worst case is it doesn't work. It's not working. Oh, wait. Oh, stuff. Oh, hey, we did stuff. This is great. This is, look at that. We got the rear main seal plate off. Let's see here. Look at that. 2 and 3 removed. There's the thrust bearing. Yuck. Now we need to continue trying to get this. That's good for it. You know what? I know what the problem is. We just don't have the big bar on it. That isn't good. Let's just keep going. What's the worst that could happen? We are very close. But hey, I think we've made some progress. We have separated yet another rod cap, which is wedged in there. Blue, you're up, buddy. Look at that. Can we get it all the way off? It's not working too good, but I have an idea. This will work. I don't think it's working. Oh no. My hammer is going to be just fine, guys. I know you're all concerned. I'm not growing frustrated, just growing older. I can't get the piston to travel in the bore at all. I guess what I could do is if I knock the studs down, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to knock the studs further down so that we can get the cap off. Let's see if that changed the outlook here. It worked. This is a last-ditch effort, but okay, kind of a last-ditch effort. It's going to be okay. I'm not fixing this engine, so don't worry about putting marks and stuff. It turned. It turned. All right, let's get a regular open-end wrench on it. See if we can get this the rest of the way out. May have to drive those studs in just like the last one. All right, we are further. I'm going to drive the studs in, and hopefully the cap will release. This one's going to be tricky. All right, now all we need to do is jar the cap loose, like so. And I think we can remove the crank. Maybe. It's coming all the way apart tonight, guys. Here is the current situation. That one's good. They're all freed up. So all I have to do now is fight the remaining rust in the 4 cylinders and the bores and drive these up. So the first thing I'm going to do is drive them down, if possible. We're just trying stuff at this point. Nothing has even so much as given a thought to moving. Not even a little. The rings are one piece with the bores right now, but that is going to change. I'm going to ramp up the severity of the swing. I can't tell if that moved anything. That definitely moved it. Let's try it on the others. We're launching bearings out of it, and that moved. 2 out of 4. Not too bad. I think that moved too. That definitely moved. This one's kind of moving. All right, we got them all moving. Now we have to get them all out. Some of these are going to be easier than others. Thank you, compressor. During the non-existent compressor break, I took it upon myself to pretty much knock all the bearings out of it so we don't damage any. We wouldn't want to do that. Now we're going to see if we can tap these out. We're going to start with number 2. That's a long ways from home. Let's see what else we can do here. A lot of these are really stuck, like in a bad way. I have an idea. Machinist. I know it's not the right size, don't care. It's doing a pretty decent job. We got to knock number 3 down a little bit. All right, I think that didn't do anything. We're going to get that all wiped out. There's still a massive rust ridge in some of these. Look at the color of that gook. Let's see if that did a thing. I think we're getting somewhere. We're moving, guys. We're going to get one of these out at least. I might have to use something other than my science hammer. We're going to use a 1.5 by 3.5. Only problem is I have gotten this stuck on the connecting rod. We are at the top of the bore. Let's try something else. Well, I'm exploding the wood. It's really not moving a lot for my liking. That actually did a thing. Got past the first ring. Let's see if Science Hammer can take it over from here. Voila! Moving on. We're only 25% of the way there, so. Oh yeah, we're moving. We're doing the things. Almost at the top of the bore. I don't want to launch this on the ground and put a dent in it. That'd be terrible. Well, I just made 3 1-bys. New, fresh piece of wood. Yep, it's out. On to number 3, maybe. This one's going to probably be the hardest one of them all. Let's just go to number 4. I'm just knocking studs out at this point. This is feeling really solid, guys. And not like the good kind of solid. Like the kind of solid that I may not get this apart. We're just going to flip it straight up and down. And that way we have the additional 1.5 pounds of gravity helping us out. That's fine, don't worry about that. Desperate times call for Desperate measures or something along those lines. We're moving. Let's see, are we nearing the top of the bore? Okay, that one is at the top of the bore. Let's go to the neighbor. It isn't so effective. I'm not going to say I'm getting worn out, but
this isn't energizing me.
What if, I have an idea. Yeah, that could be fine. I don't think that did a thing. As a matter of fact, I'm positive that did nothing. Are you guys okay? All right, good. That was a close call. Did it move it? You bet your butt it did not. Nope. This is safe. It didn't even flinch. Not even a little. It doesn't even care. Let's flip it over and drive it down to the bottom of the bore. Yeah, I think we'll have success with number 4. Anything? Nothing. At least I'm not hitting it with a sledgehammer. I think it's moving. It's moving. I probably broke it. Dang it. All right, we're going to drive it down, I think. And then, machinist. There are some serious rust ridges in there. Ridge reamer won't work halfway down a bore. Sorry, guys. Oh, we're kind of through parts of it. I think it did it. We're going to find out real quick. It's going to work. It's not working. Oh, it is working. It's further up the bore than it was before. Didn't mean to rhyme. Won't do it next time. That's the dinner bell or something. Well, I'm glad we got to the finish line. It was a little unorthodox the way we got here, but we're here. So let's take a look at the rod bearings. The splatter is just from some brake clean, but they are pretty heavily worn, especially that top bearing there. But none of these are chunking up. They're not coming apart. It doesn't look like it's been starved of oil. It just looks heavily worn. And that brake clean really kind of changes it. Let me wipe these off real quick. All right, now we can actually get a look at how these look. And they are heavily worn, but none of them are coming apart. It doesn't look like this thing was starved of oil. While water does not make the best lubrication, I suppose, when the W in the weight of your oil stands for water, there's still some oil in it. And the hardest part of the whole thing, the rods and pistons. So it turns out the wrist pins were all loosey-goosey. I gave these a little brake clean bath. And they're not too terrible. They're not good, but they're not bad. Look at how much pitting there is on these things. And, you know, the rings are stuck in the land of the rings. Some of them are. That one's freed up a little bit. At least half of it is. However, when you get to the two that really fought me, it looks like there were some casualties. Now, I can't tell you whether that's from removing it, but that's probably from removing it with the rust in the bore. It could have been from an overheat, but I'm like 99% sure that's from when I knocked it out. Really grooved up. Usually you'd find that kind of damage on this side of the piston, and this opposite, the wrist pin. Crowns all look good. Okay, that one is damaged there. What do you guys think? Did I do that? The question is not, should I have done that? The question is, did I do that? Surprisingly enough, the crankshaft actually looks like a serviceable piece. All of the journals look pretty good. I don't know whether I'll make an attempt to sell this or not, but it's not torn up, which is surprising considering the condition of this engine. And the main bearings are pretty heavily worn through a few layers of the bearing in places. You can see some copper shining through in places, but again, they're not trashed like it was starved of oil or run low on oil. They're just heavily worn. This car did have well over 200,000 miles on it. Let's look at my handy dandy machine work. So as you can tell, there's still quite a bit of rust. This block could possibly be saved, but should it be saved? No. KAs are not that, they're not that desirable to go through the length of work it would take to repair this into a proper functioning engine. This was strictly for entertainment once we got this down to a short block, although I may get a crank to sell. We'll see. They are rough. You can definitely tell where the dingleberry hone did some work and where it didn't. And I'm pretty sure that it was me. I'm the one that killed the pistons. Okay, Colombo, let's figure this one out. How did a 1995 Nissan 240SX with, at the time, 0 horsepower get into a car accident? How did a car that doesn't drive get into an accident where there would be an insurance claim and a total loss? How does that happen? Unless maybe the accident was so horrific that it just blew the head gasket at the same time. No, that didn't happen. Maybe the owner of said 240SX wanted a huge payout on their 240SX after they blew the engine up, and they didn't want to actually fix the car, and instead they ran into it with a skid steer or a truck or a trailer or another car. In lieu of having to fix it, they wanted to pay off to go buy something else. Well, I suppose that is possible. Or maybe it was parked in somebody's driveway. Maybe it was parked in front of somebody's house, waiting on parts or waiting on someone to fix it, and it got hit by somebody texting on their phone, or a drunk driver, or maybe a semi-truck was in a residential area it shouldn't have been and it got pinched. Those are much more plausible scenarios, and at least that's the way I'm going to think about this. I'm sure no one would take a payout on a car instead of fixing it. That has actually happened to me. I have bought several cars from the auction that instead of someone repairing it when they messed up or blew it up, they just set it on fire or crashed into it. I had a 335 that at the same time the battery caught fire, it dropped part of a spark plug down the cylinder and destroyed the engine. That's such a weird coincidence. Regardless, this 240 was overheated. Now, I know what you're thinking. 240SX owners take the best care of their car. They don't beat on them. They drive them easy. How could one of those overheat? Well, so this car had mods because there are no stock 240s left, and it was likely driven to within an inch of its life, and actually they took the last inch of it, and the engine it probably overheated because it was banging off the limiter sideways in a parking lot. The car had a welded diff, all the right mods. Anyway, it overheated, blew the head gasket, sucked in coolant, and probably sat like that for a really long time waiting on someone to fix it. And who knows how long it sat in front of somebody's house or in a lot or waiting for the auction. And time does cars no favors. Except for value on nice cars that are stored inside, time is the enemy. And in that case, or in this case, most of this engine is scrap. If you want to buy anything out of it, either for your desk, although there are a few good parts on it, parts off the intake manifold, I'm going to leave our email in the video description. Or if you'd like to buy parts off of this running and driving clean title SC300 with the 2JZ engine, no kidding. You can also go to Importapart.com and peruse our inventory. I've been uploading our parts cards every single week. And yes, you could fix this car, but it has no floors left in it. It's rusty, and it's much better off for parts. We'll be parting the engine out, and I think I have a couple more of these here on the lot. So if you need anything, you know where to find us. I really hope you enjoyed this video as always. I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.